When last we left our 5 sparks, their abundant shenanigans within the Spire Mirage took them through the kitchen and to the mess hall, where the group had a quick scrap with 3 mages. Interestingly enough, the mages seemed disinterested in committing their lives to the cause, and surrendered when they were beaten handedly. Similarly, Kai, a young prodigy of a necromancer, threatened the party with a small army of crawling claws, claiming that they could explode. Vuras deduced that there was no explosive magic on the claws, while Tybalt showed an uncharacteristically sympathetic side to the terrified mage. Him and Audra talking Kai down from his position, sending him on his way, and then the group proceeded upwards towards the archive, where they were greeted with Nazrun's own portrait, a great archmage standing next to his first and only apprentice, Imra Talvayne. He looked happy and proud. Maya, as someone who studied Nazrun's life before entering the tower, you would know that this is the only depiction of the Archmage you've seen where he looks happy. After a book puzzle, everybody's favorite puzzle, the group unlocked the path towards the alchemy lab, meeting with Zelob, the master of elixirs. Zelob, a hulking and mysterious alchemist wearing a very noisy mask, expressed his indifference, perhaps even disdain, of Talvayne's cause, even exposing her intention to summon an interplanar being to kill the party. Being offered money to ditch the Spire and to help the party, Zelob barely thought twice. He took the money and exchanged it for 3 elixirs of replenishment and the orange crystal that allowed access to the uppermost area of the Spire. Zelob then expressed a particular interest in Misfortune, who continues to hide her face behind a hood before finally disappearing. The group used the crystal and ascended the final level of to the Gathering Hall, the room typically utilized for gathering the collection of mages that made up for the Circle of Burial. It was here that the party came face to face with Talvayne. Channeling intense magical energy, the necromancer and scion of Lich King Nazrun tore open a wound in the reality of the world, burning at the edges, leaking out an intense heat nearly unbearable. A gateway to the 9 hells allowed a massive barbed devil to yank his way into the prime material plane. However, within a single round of combat, the group fought him down to half health, not shitting you, and Vuras summoned upon the power of his scroll of banishment and hurled the fiend back into the depths of hell he came from, before the devil even had a chance to attack. We are kind of starting in media res at the moment. Outside the walls of the Great Tower, the battle rages on. Siege machines are launching their payloads toward the magically protected tower, but whatever enchantment is that is protecting the walls of the building, the wards won't last much longer under this pressure. Ajma keeps her eyes on the tower walls, cursing under her breath while she prays against all odds that those 5 strangers were successful. Soldier swords clash with skeletons and zombies, the rising undead appearing more and more in increasing numbers. Zombies, ogres, skeletal archers, undead monsters made from the necromancers of the tower. The line of attacking soldiers find themselves being pushed back. Paladins are running low on divine power, and the battle mages are scraping by on cantrips. Saren, the High Priestess, paladin of greatest rapport among the Platinum Arms, finds herself trapped in the grip of the oversized Colossus, the one with the giant roiling fireball in its stomach. She struggles, yelling out in frustration and fury. The tide of battle is shifting. Captain Ajma Balethorn, with her hardened battle wisdom, is considering retreat for a moment. Then, a distant noise, a constant and arrhythmic pounding, closer and closer when the sound of a battle horn comes within earshot. From the opening in the forest riding on the backs of oversized boars and shouting out war cries. A ferocious band of orcs charge the back line of soldiers. Ojma snaps her head around, eyes wide with surprise and face beading sweat. Were they here to finish the guardsmen off? To loot their corpses? No, Ojma isn't that foolish. She quickly turns her towards her phalanxes and screams out a command. Split! Break the line, now! Immediately, the line of soldiers follow their assigned orders, maneuvering themselves away from their shoulder-to-shoulder position. For most soldiers, breaking the phalanx would be a terrible idea. But in this case, it would be much worse, getting impaled on the tusks of a charging boar. Blasting through the breaks in the guards' line, stampeding over the bodies of undead creatures, the boars slip right past the soldiers and into the fray. The orcish cavalry swing glaives and sword spears through the tide of zombies. Several break off to the sides and begin firing with arrows. At the head of this charge is an orc adorned with a bear pelt cloak, tusks slightly oversized, face covered in war paint, and they wield no weapons. Their boar trampling the easiest path across the battlefield, this orc finds their target and holds momentum in the charge, heading directly towards the towering colossus. Without hesitation, the orc lets go of the reins on their boar, unlatches themselves from their saddle, and leaps from the back of the large mount. Soaring through the air at impressive speed, this orc begins changing shape mid-flight. Skin first turning to a dark brown, hardening, cracking like stone. Their form grows to 13 feet of height, and the entire weight of an earth elemental slams into the leg bone of the skeletal colossus. The gigantic minotaur skeleton, mid-preparation of another fireball, is sent careening backwards and launches the fiery projectile directly into the tower's magic barrier. A complete misfire. The elemental, having snapped the leg of such a huge monster, pounds another fist into the bone, splintering it with intention to cripple. Saren, granted the opportunity, breaks away from her restraint and calls out the name of her spear, returning the weapon to her now free hand. She plummets to the ground, several stories into the sky, but before she slams into the hard earth, she summons power from her spear and it begins crackling with golden lightning. She pitches upward, hovering in the air and preventing a brutal landing. The most powerful paladin in the Platinum Order stands next to this hulking elemental body of a fearless shaman, ready to finish the fight.
I know what my character likes.
Clearly. And we are going to cut to the tower.
Well, just for validation, it did sound real cool.
It did. It sounded great. I love that.
I always love when you get super descriptive. It's very nice.
It's very cool.
Yay! Speaking of which, within the tower, we find a wholly different scene in front of us. Now, fury visibly welling up inside of the necromancer, Imra Talvayne assumes a form befitting of her station. Levitating into the air, her robes leak out a shadowy black tendrils of necrotic energy that enwreath her form in a ghostly force. Ethereal and unnatural, copies of her face twist and scream, like specters splitting off from the base of her neck. Some images of her face are crying, some are laughing, some thrash about in a feral fashion, but all of them appear more emaciated and skeletal in form. The horrifying banshee-like visage instills fear in her own subordinates, who back away to the wall of the gathering hall. Now hovering 20 feet into the air, she brandishes a dark purple crystal ball that begins floating off of her palm, spinning around as she channels necrotic energy through it. I am exacting vengeance, justice for the fools of the Circean tribunal, the Gaul dynasty. Their thirst for bloodshed shall be met in kind, and I will not allow you fools to stand in the way of their burial. The purple orb shines and is filled with roiling magic, and in a sudden flash of blue light, a pile of fur, bones, and decayed flesh appears on the ground about 10 feet away from her position relative to the ground. The body has some sort of skull jutting from it with large fangs and an open jaw. You banished my fiend, but devils are not the only thing I have command over. The crystal ball leaks out a dark smoke that hangs in the air for a moment before it spirals down and enters the open jaw of the summoned corpse. Breathing unlife into the body, the heap of bones and tissue convulse. Leftover viscera that had already decayed off the body now falls into a small pile on the floor as the corpse constitutes itself, standing up full of this false breath in its lungs. The zombie of a four-armed gorillon takes the defiant roar of the necromancer's will incarnate and determination to see their goals through to the end. This is phase 2. I will say, before it is Talvayne's turn in the order proper, which all of this part is part of her turn, just because she's a boss, she gets that. I will say,
cutscene move.
Yeah, she gets a cutscene move. I will say that Tybalt, right before this happens, you feel a surge of energy kind of enter from your back, like some sort of magical energy is displaced into your back, like up through your spine, and you feel all of a sudden you regain a first level spell slot.
Oh.
Okay, I'm chill with that.